it's a great privilege that we arrive in elections in 2014, 20 years into democracy, really where we say, let's talk about South Africa's future, let's talk about South Africa's tomorrow, which in the main speaks to every single young South African who sits in this room. I think what we signed into in 1994 was the right for South Africans to vote. Where we are today is must talk about a society that says, can there be a political party that represents all sorts of races, that represents all of us as South Africans? That when we arrive here, we build a country that belongs to all of us as South Africans. And that's about making sure that what is left over from not having been done in 1994 about land reform, about making sure that South Africans don't ever talk about an economy of two slides where some are included and others are excluded, that we must talk about an inclusive economy. Young people who sit in this room face the worst brunt of unemployment. In fact, 1.96 million people in Gauteng can't find work. We must vote for a party that has proven that we're able to create jobs. And as the DA, 70% of the jobs that were created in the quarter here in South Africa were created by the DA. We must talk about the elimination of corruption and making sure that governments aren't corrupt and that we don't have this rising bill of 36 billion rands of corruption. We equally so must talk about, when we talk about the future of South Africans here, it's about a decent education. It's about making sure we have a labor of young people that can enter into the workspace able to type email. That's why we talk about providing free ICT infrastructure to every high school, even here in Gauteng, and making sure that young people who qualify to get into matric can get free tertiary education.
I think our democracy itself is youthful. 2 days ago, our democracy turned 20. So the democracy itself is coming of age. And it is about time, when you get to those kinds of ages, you start asking different questions. And that is why, as the EFF, we're asking questions around economic freedom. We appreciate that there was political freedom in 1994, which we acknowledge, but the political freedom was never an end in itself. It was a means to an end. The real end was the economic emancipation of our people. If you look to your history, you'll see that our party is probably the most youthful party. It's a youth-led party. It was actually inspired, as you heard from the song from Deep Fried Man, by the disbandment of the ANC Youth League. When 6,000 young people met at Ganolar Estate and mapped out the future of the country, and then that program was aborted, as it were. But so in every policy that you will see in our manifesto, the issue of youth is ingrained. We don't have a special youth section, because when we talk about free education, when we talk about free sanitary towels for young women, when we talk about all the imposition of quotas for youth employment, when we reject the youth wage subsidy, those are all youth issues.
The issues around the growing inequality that faces our country affects South African youth the most. It's an issue which plagues us in our day-to-day, but it's also an issue which divides us. And Agang offers an opportunity where those divisions, that massive growing inequality, is dealt with in a meaningful way, where your leaders are accountable and they respond in a respectful way to you, where you have a voice which matters, not a voice where someone says they deserve your vote, but rather a voice that says we will walk with you, we will carry a path which respects you, but we will give voice to your concerns. With that in mind, Agang's approach has been free education for our young people, but not just free education, but high quality education, where you have a system and schools which deal with the inequalities, where you have quality teachers, quality facilities, but you have the knowledge that through an education system you can make the choice. You can choose a different future. And many of the young people in our country are also locked out of the system. So many of them, free education is not necessarily an option for them today, but a system where they get a second chance through a meaningful on-the-job training program, which takes 1.3 million young people through a skills training which affirms their dignity, but gives them an opportunity to truly participate in their country. A country which, because of those divisions, people feel locked out. And the only way to deal with those inequalities is to have an imaginative approach where young people and citizens are put first, where citizens are at the center of everything that's decided. And that's the only way you can turn a country around, where politicians no longer say they deserve your vote, but you say to them, you answer to me.
The African National Congress, particularly Youth League, has a very rich history of struggling side by side with people of South Africa. They would know. Representative from EFF was making that mention. From when Youth League was established, it then injected a particular energy and a focus for the ANC to indeed reflect the aspirations of young people, be a fighting organ. Now, the African National Congress, having been in power for 20 years, indeed would want to have much more young people participating in politics, in the mainstream of politics. But equally, we must make unmeasurable instruments that we have. On SRC elections that happen throughout the country, it is this ANC Youth League and this Progressive Youth Alliance that are sweeping each and every SRC elections that are available. It is therefore this ANC that had put in place policy instruments to reflect to the issue of youth unemployment, which is problematic, owing it to the monopolized economy, owing it to less industrialization, to low manufacturing base. Therefore, the manifesto of the ANC put in place exactly that fact, that as we go forward now, it is important that we ensure that more young people are actually skilled and educated. That's why NSFAS investment this year is 9 billion. That's why 2.7 billion has been set aside for young people on entrepreneurs and so forth.